Welcome to SolidCAM Professor. I'm Sydney, your SolidCAM Professor, with one of many videos available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In these two next lessons, we'll be teaching you how to create chain geometries. Chain geometries are used to create a border in order to tell the tool to work within that specific area. It is also used to create a tool path for profile operations, for example, for the actual path that you want the tool to take. To show you exactly how we create it, I'm going to open up an operation in 2.5D of profile. Now, the geometries that I'll be creating is not only for profile, but can be used in several different places. As far as the specific operations where they can be used, we'll be showing you that in our future recordings on each of the individual types of operations. Now, in our profile operation, I'll go to my geometry page shown over here, and I'll choose the option to create a new chain geometry. Now, before I actually create my geometry, let me just note that the chain geometry is tied in to the coordinate system. If I create a chain geometry on one coordinate system, I cannot use that same geometry on a different coordinate system. Now, let's create a new geometry, and I'll click on the option of New Geometry. Now, as you can see, there are many different options over here, and we'll go down the list one by one, explaining what each does. In our first line, it's just giving us the name of the particular geometry that we are creating. As default, it has the word contour, but you can write anything that you want in here. And I also suggest that you write whatever you want in there that will actually help explain exactly what you're doing. For instance, if I'm doing the outside of the part, creating a chain on the outside of the part itself, I'll call this geometry outside. You can call it though whatever you want, as long as you understand exactly what that name says. Next, you can use a specific configuration. If you have more than one configuration on the part, you can call up the configuration and create the geometry on a specific configuration. Next, we have the chain list. When you create a geometry can be made up of one or more chains, and the list of chains will be inside this window. As you see right now, the window is empty because we haven't created any chains yet. Note on the side, there are also buttons that are not available at this moment. They become available once we start creating a chain. Now, let's go into creating the chain itself. Creating a chain is actually broken up into 3 different areas. The first area is creating it one step at a time, picking out each entity or from point to point, as we'll see as we go along. Next is creating it automatically, where it actually finds the chain after picking the first curve on the part itself. And then there's also multi-chain, allowing us to pick many chains within one click on the part itself. One other way though to create a geometry is also by text, and that has a separate button over here. Let's first start with the single entity on the part itself, and we'll start with the option of curve. Now, let's start with the option of curve. I'm going to create a geometry going from this area up until this point over here, but using curve. If I click on the line itself, I've chosen my first part of that geometry. Now note that there's also an arrow showing the direction of that geometry. This arrow was put here by the fact that I clicked close towards this edge over here. If I go back over here, I can do undo step. If I were to do the same thing and click on this part of that curve, you'll note that the arrow is going in the opposite direction. So the side that you pick the curve on is the side that the arrow will start. Now I can always change the direction of the arrow by clicking on this button over here which says reverse. By clicking reverse, the direction will change as well. Now to continue the chain, I can click on my next element over here, my next curve, as shown over here, and I can go on and click on the next one as shown over here. Note that it's gotten up to the area where I wanted to get to. I want to stop at this area. All I have to do now is click on accept chain as shown over here. When I do so, you can see that I have one chain inside my chain list. Now note, this is what we call an open chain, as it starts from one point and ends at a different point, as compared to a closed chain, which would be something that goes all the way around and ends at the same point where that particular chain started. Now I'd like to create a chain geometry going around this area over here. Now note, if I were to pick the chain will go over here, go around the circle over here, and the same thing around over here. But let's say I've drilled out this area, or I don't want the tool to go in there at all. What I want to actually have done is just to go up this area, then directly over here, third area, fourth, and just close off that way. Well, for that, we have curve plus closed corners. If I were to choose that option, note what happens. I'll pick the first curve, just like I did before. Now, I'm going to pick my next curve over here. Now, beforehand, when I had just curve, I would have to play with my gap maximum for that to connect. With curve plus closed corners, when I click on this, it'll actually close the corner automatically between the two elements. Go on to the next one, same thing over there, and to close this chain, all I do is click on the first one again. And note that this chain now is a closed chain as it goes all the way around the part. You'll also note that the chain itself is finished, and you can see this sign over here showing it to be a closed chain. This concludes part 1 of our lesson on chain geometries. Stay tuned for part 2 on our lessons of chain geometries. For more videos on SolidCAM Professor, please go to our website www.solidcam.com and look for the tab called SolidCAM Professor. Thank you for joining us on SolidCAM Professor. Take care and have a nice day.